think mothers and fathers made up the gods because they wanted their children to sleep through the night.
I saw a vision in the flames. Great battle in the snow. I saw it. And you saw whatever she gave birth to. I never believed, but when you see the truth, when it's right there in front of you, as real as these iron bars, how can you deny her God is real?
Hey guys, Kevin here, and today I want to answer the question, which gods are real in the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones universe? I began this video with a scene from the show where King Stannis Baratheon tells Sir Davos Seaworth that he doesn't want to believe in the Lord of Light, but he has seen Melisandre's magic. He has seen the Red Priestess's power, so how can it be said that it is not her God giving her those powers and her visions? In the books, Sir Davos is a devout worshipper of the Seven, and Stannis is the non-believer, even on the eve of the Battle of Ice. Nevertheless, his reluctant belief in her lore in the show seems to be the line of thinking of most viewers and book readers. So let's take into consideration why Stannis thinks this. In the show, Melisandre's magic is the only magic Stannis has seen in the series. He hasn't seen the crazy things Jojen, Bran, or Bloodraven have done in the name of the old gods. He hasn't seen what Arya, Jaqen, or the other Faceless Men have done in the name of the many-faced god whose name is Death. He hasn't seen what happens on the Iron Islands, where priests actually drown people and resurrect them in their baptism ceremony in the name of the Drowned God. He hasn't seen the Dosh Khaleen accurately predict that the Dothraki would all be united into a single Khalasar and ride off to conquer the world, a prediction they made in the name of their horse god. He hasn't seen Dany and her dragons, the warlocks of Qarth. He hasn't seen and doesn't know about any of this. These are all people who worship different gods, and are still granted magical powers. If magic is coming from divine forces, then all these gods must be real, and that's inconsistent with Melisandre's religion, which says that only the Lord of Light and the Great Other are real. Some will argue that perhaps this is the case, but do they argue the dichotomy as well, that the Great Other is evil, and that the Lord of Light is good? The idea that magic is related to the gods is only perpetuated in this series by Melisandre, Thoros of Myr, Moqorro, and other Red Priests. If you have read the last two Game of Thrones books, A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, or watched Season 6 of Game of Thrones, then you know that characters like Cersei Lannister and Melisandre have had significant trouble interpreting prophecy. And generally speaking, if Cersei or Melisandre says something is true, then you should believe the exact opposite. As for the old gods, everything that has been said to have been done by the old gods can be explained as actions taken by Bloodraven, Bran, and the Children of the Forest. Everything from the Stark children getting their direwolves, to talking crows, to trees having faces on them, to Hodor's accident, can be explained by the actions of the Green Seers and the children, without there needing to be any kind of higher power. None of the gods in the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones are real. Magic simply exists in this world, and people use religion to justify the existence of magic. George R.R. Martin, the author of the Song of Ice and Fire series, has been asked many questions about the gods and religions in this series by fans, because it's an interesting topic that is very much in need of clarity. In one interview he did alongside Michelle Fairley, the actress who plays Lady Catelyn Stark, he is asked why we haven't heard from the Seven and seen their magical abilities like we've seen that of the old gods or the Lord of Light. This was his answer.
I'm not sure what you mean by heard from, a postcard, a telegram.
Email.
I don't intend, none of these gods have been on stage. I mean, people believe in them, just as people believe in the Seven. I don't intend to ever actually bring a god on stage and have him interacting with people. I'm not sure any of the gods in Westeros are real. I'm not sure that any of the gods in real world are real. I'm a doubter in that sense, which is not to undermine, not to say that the people who believe in them don't believe in them. I mean, in the books, I think the Seven can be seen most strongly in some of the Davos chapters. I recall this section where Davos lives through the Battle of Blackwater and is found clutching this rock and is saved. He really does feel that the mother, he had a vision of the mother and she appeared to him, and he feels that the Seven are instructing him to kill Melisandre. So his faith in the Seven is driving some of his beliefs. And Caitlin in the book also has a certain religious faith in the Seven.
She prays to the Seven, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But other than that, it works on a more, thematic and symbolic function than a literal one.
As Martin said, the gods in this universe serve a more symbolic and thematic function than a literal one. A literal function will be that the gods are real and are giving powers to their worshippers. The gods serving a more symbolic and thematic function means that faith is there to add more depth and realism and complexity to the series. One of the coolest things about the series is that it's an exercise in world building. Everything has a history. When the Targaryens first came over to Westeros, they worshipped their crazy foreign dragon gods, Balerion and Vagar and Meraxes. This usurping foreign religion upset the Sept and the faith of the Seven, and caused the earliest wars after the Targaryens conquered most of Westeros. That conflict is renewed when Cersei rearms the faith, and that ends up going pretty badly when the faith of the Seven really takes power in war-torn Westeros, and wants to hold the wealthy and powerful accountable for their crimes and perceived blasphemies. You also see the importance of religion to the cultures of the North and the Iron Islands, and even the Dothraki Sea. George R. R. Martin talks about the importance of religion in real-world history and in his fictional world in an interview he did for the book A World of Ice and Fire.
But I do always try to consider the question of religion, which I think is important because religion shapes societies and shapes cultures and shapes values. And even in our modern world, of course, we see conflicts all around the world being driven by religious disputes, even now. And of course, through history, the religious disputes are legion, and the millions of people who have died in the names of that it's appalling to think about. I was raised Catholic, but have long since stopped practicing. I suppose I'd be considered a skeptic now, and I just look at religions. Say, really, are you really going to kill all these people because a giant invisible guy in the sky told you to? And your giant invisible guy in the sky is different. But you can't ignore religion in fantasy, I think, because it's too important in history.
Many of the characters driven by religion in the series are driven to do terrible things. The raiding and raping of the Ironborn, the things Melisandre has done, some of the things the Faith of the Seven did in King's Landing, slavery and the wars to defend slavery in Cascari Slaver's Bay. These atrocities would normally make people feel terrible, but they have the conviction of faith that they are doing the right thing, and the existence of magic further strengthens these convictions.
And the other thing that, of course, is worth mentioning about religion is, in fantasy, is that in most fantasies, you have working magic. You have magic that demonstrably works, which would affect the religious feelings of many people, Even when I was a Catholic and going to catechism and I was being taught all these Catholic things, I would sort of say, sister, why is it that all this walking on water and raising the dead and stuff took place like 2,000 years ago? Because if it took place now, I would be much more convinced if I could see it on television, And indeed, if I would become the most religious guy in the world if we could actually see someone raising the dead or, ascending to heaven or doing any of these things we read about in the Bible and other ancient religious texts. And in fantasy, that does happen here. We are seeing in the red god, for example, in my own books, people say, well, why are the Brotherhood Without Banners abandoning their own religion that they were raised with, the seven, to follow Thoros of Myr and the red gods? Well, it's partly because they've seen him raise the dead. Not once, but several times. Yeah. That's persuasive. Yeah. So they're thinking, well, maybe this guy has the right of it here.
We arguably live in a world devoid of miracles, but there have been thousands of religions throughout human history that talk about miracles and the various acts of gods. And in a world where magic is real, where you can physically see what is in effect a miracle, anywhere by these practitioners of magic, you're going to believe in miracles. You're going to believe in the gods they say are responsible for those miracles. So in the rich universe that George R.R. Martin has created, religion is used to justify the existence of magic, as well as a source of conflict and motivation for the numerous characters he's created in the series. This adds to the realism and complexity of the story he's telling. But I think a big part of the reason that magic continues to be associated with the gods in this series isn't because characters like Melisandre say they're connected, but because very specific types of magic are associated with very specific religions, such as warring with the old gods and seeing visions in the flame with the Lord of Light. The magic associated with the old gods is not the same kind of magic that's associated with the red god, or the same kind of magic associated with the drowned god, or the same kind of magic associated with the many-faced god. But if you look more closely at the series, you'll see another pattern emerge. And I go into my observations, and what I think is actually going on in this series in part 2, Where Does Magic Come From?, which is already up. So like, comment, subscribe, share, check out my other videos. I'll be back with more videos soon.